Hello and welcome to the Beardicus Show. My name is Beardicus and today I will be talking about Shantae, Half-Genie Hero, or Shugugh for short. Actually, you know what, now that I say that out loud it sounds kind of stupid. So, Half-Genie Hero it is. Half-Genie Hero is the fourth game in the Shantae series. It was kickstarted by WayForward, the company that makes Shantae. It's not like a fan game or anything. WayForward made the fourth game as a Kickstarter. The game itself came out late last year in December 20th, I believe. And the reason I'm talking about it now is because the Risky Boots DLC is about to come out. Or it just came out. Not sure how long it's going to take to edit this video. But at the time of recording, it's going to come out in about a week. Before I talk about the Risky Boots DLC, it would probably be prudent to talk about the base game, so let's start there. The main mode of this game stars Shantae, the half-genie, who is also a hero. By the way, if you were wondering where the title of this game comes from, that's where it comes from. The game begins with Shantae talking with her Uncle Mimic, who tells her about a machine, the Dynamo, which will supposedly generate enough power to keep the lights on in Scuttletown, which will keep it safe from monsters and pirates. Wait, are pirates weak to light? Is that a thing? You know, Risky Boots is pretty pale. Anyway, Risky Boots, the notorious pirate that she is, steals the blueprints of the device, and the game begins. Now, the point of this game is to get your hands on Risky's booty, and I don't mean like, not like her butt. I mean, you know, her treasure, because she's a pirate, and pirate booty is treasure. By the end of the first level, you've already defeated Risky Boots and recovered the blueprints. And this definitely isn't a trap. I mean, like, what, is Risky Boots gonna switch the blueprints with fakes? She's a pirate. She would never do something so underhanded. The overall goal of the game is to get a few components so Uncle Mimic can build his machine. But the thing is, at this point, the story kind of goes haywire. You start going all over the place, solving problems that really have nothing to do with the story. Oh, maidens are going missing in Mermaid Falls? Well, I mean, that has nothing to do with what we're doing, but okay, let's go teach those mermaids a lesson. Well, actually, by the looks of it, they're going to be teaching me a lesson. Yep, there it is. Looks like I'll be sleeping with the fishes tonight, eh? I mean, they could at least buy me dinner first, am I right? Ha ha! That wasn't funny. The story follows an unusual pattern. You learn about some new problem that has nothing to do with the rest of the game. You explore and complete a new area to solve that problem. Then you return to a previous area and complete a fetch quest in exchange for one of the components that Uncle Mimic needs. It's an unusual storytelling method, but it really just serves to make the game feel weird and disjointed. Honestly, they probably should have just taken one of these plots and made a game out of that, and then they could have taken all the other plots and maybe saved those for the DLC campaigns. Instead, we get a jumbled mess of several different plots that aren't fully fleshed out. They just kind of feel like they're shoehorning in each of Shantae's enemies, with only one new major villain who, to be honest, is rather forgettable. You'll get the joke if you play the game. Okay. Shantae games have never had really great stories. The plot isn't the important part. And it's not even the best part of the writing. The best part of the writing actually comes from the dialogue. The characters are full of personality and, more importantly, humor. And all of that is still here, so it's not in your best interest to skip the story. Just don't, expect too much from the story part of the writing. Shantae games are usually Metroidvania platformers where you have to explore dungeons while using your hair whip and several other abilities and magic attacks to fight monsters and bosses. But oddly enough, that isn't actually the case with Half-Genie Hero. This game is no longer a Metroidvania platformer. There are no dungeons to be explored or puzzles to be solved. Instead, this game relies on straightforward platforming obstacles for you to overcome. This makes each world much shorter and easier to complete. Though the story sections, the fetch quests I mentioned earlier, do require backtracking. And if you're going for 100% completion, you're going to be backtracking even more. So that aspect is still very much in this game, though the gameplay itself is definitely more simplistic than previous Shantae games. Returning to this game after being absent from Pirate's Curse are Shantae's dance transformations. Her dance formations, if you will. This game sees the return of every form from the previous games. Yes, even the harpy and spider forms that were only in the first game. In fact, this game has 11 different forms and 3 additional dances on top of that. However, that is including the blobfish form, which is, well, it's this. Now, if you were paying attention, you may have noticed that there were only 12 slots for dances in the menu, but I said that there were 14 dances total. The reason for this is that 2 pairs of dances are actually mutually exclusive. As a result of having so many different forms, some of them feel like they were a bit underutilized. That is especially true for the bat form. While it is necessary a few times, it's the only form, well, main form anyway, that doesn't get an attack. Instead, its secondary ability, Sonar, is a passive ability that allows you to see in the dark, which is useful literally once. Still, the only form I actually didn't like at all was the mouse form, largely because its main use is to crawl through these tiny little tunnels that zigzag all over the place for no reason. I shouldn't have to steer my way through this tunnel. I mean, sure, once you start adding enemies it makes sense, but the earlier tunnels where there are no hazards or dead ends, I should just pop out on the other side of the tunnel. Otherwise, I always like using the different forms in a Shantae game, especially the harpy form. Call me old-fashioned, but I always appreciate when a 2D platformer gives me the ability to fly forever. As you discover new forms, either from beating bosses or just out in the wild, you might find it to be a good idea to return to previously completed levels. Because scattered throughout each level, you can find some different collectibles, many of which will be out of your reach the first time visiting a level. Only later, after finding a new dance formation, will you be able to go back and get that collectible. And there are a wide variety of collectibles throughout this game too. Some have immediate uses, like the heart holder, which increases your max HP by 1 full heart. Some grant you new forms, or grant one of your current forms a second ability. Or maybe it'll be something completely worthless. Still, it's always in your best interest to find and collect everything you can. After all, you never know when someone is going to send you on a side quest for a few pieces of scrap metal. In addition to collectibles found out in the wild, several items and equipment can be bought from the item shop for gems. Just by playing through the game normally, you should be able to afford most, if not all, of these items. But if you find yourself a little short on cash, here's a tip. This snake lady here sells you some extra dances, one of them being the blobfish dance from before. But she also has a different dance that you might be interested in. The gem jug form produces gems infinitely that you can just have, free of charge. Well, sort of. It does cost magic, so you can't really abuse it to get infinite money. Unless you could, I don't know, find some place where you could just sit in a pool of water that will automatically refill your magic faster than you can drain it. But where would you even find a bathhouse in Scuttletown right between Sky's Hatchery and the item shop? Or, I've heard rumors that if you can find and return all 10 gallery keys to Mayor, Mayor Toad, then he might just reward you with a magical tiara that will give you infinite magic and just break the game in half. Are you low on health? I use the full heal dance. You have infinite magic, so why not? Need 5,000 gems? Well, if you've got the gem jug dance and the patience, there you go. Stuck on one of these slides of death? Fully upgrade your lightning magic and it's a problem no more. Okay, maybe you're the type of person who likes to complete games, but not break them. Well, that's fine too, because you can turn off any of your upgrades from the pause menu, including the magical tiara. Okay, well, I think that about wraps up everything I wanted to say about Shantae's campaign. Now, as I said, this game is a lot more simplistic than previous Shantae games, with most of the dungeons being replaced with more straightforward, albeit still challenging, platforming sections. Now, this isn't really a problem for me personally, because I am a huge fan of platformers, but if your favorite part of previous Shantae games was the level design, I can understand why you might be a little disappointed with this game. And now for the DLC. I'm going to make this perfectly clear. I helped back this game, so I got this DLC for free, but if you did not back the Kickstarter, then you're going to have to pay for the DLC. With that aside, let's look at Risky Boots' campaign. More like Risque Boots, am I right? Ha ha! No, but seriously, she doesn't wear a lot of clothes. So this campaign actually picks up near the end of Shantae's campaign, with Risky announcing that this is what really happened. But judging from Uncle Mimic's comments, I have my doubts that this is what actually. Why are you in a bathtub? What is this? What's going on? I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm just a little confused. Is this the hub menu? Because it looks more like the tub menu to me. Anyway, when announcing that this DLC was ready, WayForward posted a post about it on Kickstarter. In this post, WayForward made it clear that they wanted everyone to understand that this is not just a new character, it's also an entirely new experience. Which is, mostly true? I'd say it's like 90% true. But there is one thing I feel I need to point out. While there is a new story and new abilities and collectibles and all that stuff, this all takes place on the same levels as before, with the same bosses on each level. Well, I mean, except the Risky Boots fight at the end, obviously. Though the levels are slightly tweaked to ensure that Risky can get all the way through each level, including some mechanics that were not seen in Shantae's campaign at all. But beyond that, the enemies and bosses are all more difficult, with the bosses attacking faster and with better aim. Risky also has to deal with many of the late game enemies much earlier than Shantae would, and in the later levels she has to deal with many enemies that Shantae doesn't see at all, not even in hardcore mode. And you'll realize pretty quickly that a lot of these tougher enemies have a lot of invincibility frames, so it takes much longer to fight them, and in the end it might just be easier to ignore them and maybe take a hit or two. Like, who cares? The time it saves is worth the damage I take and wait a second. Did that succubus just slap her butt at me? Okay, that's it. She's going down. Okay, that death animation was actually well worth the effort. Now you might be wondering, wait a second, Risky Boots isn't a genie, so how can she access Shantae's transformations? Well, she can't. That's part of what makes her campaign a new experience. She's got a completely new moveset. Or, well, it's largely the same as the moveset from Pirate's Curse, but it's completely unique from Shantae's moveset in this game. Well, except for the grappling hook, which is basically the same as Shantae's spider form. But even compared to Pirate's Curse, Risky still has some new abilities, such as her spread shot pistol and her seeker missiles, both of which do exactly what they sound like they do, fire in a spread and seek out the nearest enemy respectively. Like Shantae, Risky Boots does not start with all of her abilities, she has to earn them. But unlike Shantae, who has to buy or find a large portion of her abilities, all of Risky's are unlocked by beating bosses. Which means that you don't have to backtrack to find any of her abilities. Risky gets all of them just by playing each level once, even if you ignore all of the secrets. Which means you can actually 100% complete this mode by playing through each level once. And then, playing through each level one more time. But still, only twice. And due to this, you can easily complete Risky's mode much faster than Shantae's, even if you're not completing it. For a comparison, I completed Risky's mode in a little over 2.5 hours, whereas Shantae's Hero mode, where you start with many of her forms, which reduces the need to backtrack, still took me over 3 hours to complete. Since all upgrades are found by beating bosses, that leaves only 2 collectibles to be found in this mode: Genie Crystals and Dark Magic. Genie Crystals are the main collectible. There are 15 to find, but unlike most platformers where finding all the collectibles might give you a better ending, if anything, collecting these is not optional. Finding all of them is necessary to access the final level. Meanwhile, the other collectible is Dark Magic, which is optional because its only use is to upgrade Risky's equipment. Every move in Risky's arsenal can be upgraded 3 times. This includes all of her unlockable abilities and her HP meter. But unlike Shantae, whose HP caps out at 14 hearts total, Risky's HP, when fully upgraded, maxes out at only 6 skulls. Coupled with the fact that you can't upgrade Risky's defense, and that she'll be spending a lot of time fighting tougher enemies, and it becomes pretty clear why her name is Risky. Because it's risky to play as her, because the enemies are tougher and she has less health. And she can't, upgrade her defense. So it's risky because she can die easier. That was what I was getting at. However, on the flip side, since Risky can hold on to dark magic and use it later, and since upgrading HP fully heals you, you can always just carry a dark magic, or 3, with you and use it if you ever need a quick burst of HP. I had a lot of fun playing with Risky's moveset. I mean, sure, she may not be able to fly, but when fully upgraded, she can basically fly. Even without the defensive options that Shantae has, with Risky's mobility, she can easily cut her way through, or jump over, any enemy that stands in her way. And the best part is that using Risky's abilities simply requires pressing a button. Unlike Shantae, who has to stop and dance to activate one of her dance formations. Risky can just use her moves without breaking stride. And finally, the story differences. Because yes, this mode does have a completely unique story from Shantae's mode. It just doesn't have a lot of story. Basically, it boils down to we need to find 5 items, one of which is hidden in each world, and we need the 15 crystals. Check back in with me when you're done. Now, this isn't really a bad thing, since we're playing as the bad guy in a game where we already know that the story says the good guy wins. So it would have been kind of hard to get invested in a story where we knew all of our efforts were going to go to waste anyway. However, I do think that they could have taken some time to kind of explore Risky's character a bit more. I mean, what do we really know about Risky anyway? She's a pirate and a megalomaniac, I guess. She wears some dead guy's face for clothes. But why? What's her motivation? I'm serious. I played 2.5 hours of this mode and I didn't learn anything about Risky. Except for the fact that apparently any moment she's not out causing trouble, she's apparently soaking in a bathtub. The worst part is that they kind of set up a story that they just never really followed through with. For the entire campaign, Risky Boots is pretty cruel to her Tinkerbat minions, and at one point a subset of them actually betray her, and then when you defeat the Giga Mermaid as Risky, Risky takes the opportunity to remind the giant fish lady that Risky is in fact a villain, seemingly setting up some sort of plot twist where maybe Risky Boots gets betrayed by her minions, and then she ends up having to save Shantae, but then she lies about it to save face and make it seem like she's still the bad guy. At least for appearance's sake. But no, these little snippets of the story were just excuses to keep the Tinkerbats as minions on Main Street and the Giga Mermaid as the boss of Mermaid Falls. So while you can say that this mode has a completely unique story from the original mode, that's only if you count Shantae's excuse plot with weird pacing and mandatory side quests as different from Risky Boots' also excuse plot that has so little plot it's basically not even an excuse plot, and with no side quests. But, I mean, it is technically different. I do have to say that this mode is much more challenging than Shantae's mode was. Well, at least Shantae's base mode. Hardcore mode is a very different story. But the most difficult part of the game is one section of Risky's final level. Ugh. You have no idea how many tries this section took me due to the timing of that one smashy spike pillar. But I finally made it, and What happened? No, don't do this, no! Overall, I really enjoyed Risky's DLC. I mean, I would have preferred if they, continued her story arc from Pirate's Curse or something, but I wasn't really expecting them to, so I'm not really disappointed. And besides, the gameplay is the main focus of these games, and that was really fun. And also, for some reason, I really preferred Risky's hub menu over Shantae's hub level. I'm not sure why. Hey, thanks for watching. So there are my thoughts on this game and its DLC. What do you think? Do you hate DLC? Do you hate that they simplified this game? Do you hate me? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, either way, like, comment, and subscribe, or whatever other stuff you're supposed to say at the end of a YouTube video. See you next time, and goodbye.